The sun was barely cresting the horizon on Tarkus 5, casting long shadows over the rugged terrain of the mining colony. The air was thick with the dust and noise of heavy machinery, as miners, predominantly humans, prepared for another day of extracting valerium, a rare mineral coveted across the galaxy. Jeff Carlson, a seasoned miner with a reputation for his unwavering work ethic and fairness, was among them, ready to dive into another grueling day. As Jeff directed his crew near the eastern ridge of the mine, a sudden commotion caught everyone's attention. A convoy of sleek armored vehicles rolled into the mining site, stirring clouds of dust as they halted. They bore the emblem of the Zeltrax Guild, a powerful consortium known for their strict control over mining operations in this sector of the galaxy. A tall figure, encased in a shimmering exosuit, stepped out from the lead vehicle. Surrounded by armed guards, the Zeltrax enforcer, Zorath, approached Jeff with an air of cold authority. "Jeff Carlson," Zorath's voice boomed, mechanically enhanced by his suit. "You are in violation of Regulation 42B. Your equipment is hereby seized until further notice." Jeff, wiping sweat and grime from his brow, met Zorath's gaze with a defiant scowl. "Violation? We've been mining here for years without a hitch. What's this about suddenly?" Zorath, unyielding, gestured to his guards. "Ignorance of the law excuses no one. Your drills and extractors are now under guild custody." Without further discussion, the enforcers began disconnecting and loading Jeff's mining rigs onto their transport vehicles. The miners, incensed by this blatant overreach, started to protest, but Jeff raised his hand, signaling them to stand down. "Let them take it, for now," he muttered through clenched teeth. After the Zeltrax had left with his equipment, Jeff surveyed the now quiet mine, the early morning's vigor replaced with a palpable tension. His crew looked to him for guidance, their faces etched with a mix of anger and uncertainty. "This isn't just about me," Jeff addressed his team, his voice steady despite the rage brewing inside him. "It's about every single one of us on the frontier. The Zeltrax think they can push us around because they see us as lone voices, easy to silence, but together, we're a force to be reckoned with." Determined, Jeff spent the rest of the day reaching out to other human colonies and mining operations across Tarkus 5 and neighboring planets. His message was clear. The Zeltrax Guild had overstepped, and it was time for the miners to band together to demand fairness and justice. By nightfall, Jeff's comms were buzzing with responses from dozens of colonies. The miners were uniting, their shared grievances fusing them into a single, powerful voice ready to challenge the Guild's tyranny. As Jeff looked out over the now idle mine, his resolve hardened. This was no longer a simple dispute over mining equipment. It had become the spark for a broader uprising. He knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he also knew that the human spirit, tempered by adversity and the harshness of space, was not easily broken. This was the beginning of their stand, and Jeff was ready to lead the charge. The message from Jeff Carlson resonated like a shockwave across the scattered human colonies of the frontier. His call for unity in the face of the Zeltrax Guild's tyranny had struck a chord, and responses flooded in, each one a voice eager to join the burgeoning resistance. What began as a spark of defiance on Tarkus 5 was quickly becoming a wildfire of collective outrage and determination. In the dim light of his modest command center, Jeff reviewed the communications from various colony leaders and mining captains. Each message brought with it a tale of exploitation or overreach similar to his own. It was clear that the Zeltrax Guild had been tightening its grip for years, using obscure regulations and force to maintain control over the lucrative mining operations. "This is bigger than any of us thought," Jeff mused aloud, the gravity of the situation sinking in. With a steady hand, he began organizing a meeting, a summit of sorts, where all aggrieved parties could gather and form a united front. The location was set for a neutral asteroid, a place where many miners had previously convened for trade meets. As the date of the meeting approached, Jeff prepared his arguments and proposals. He envisioned a coalition of human miners and settlers, a formal alliance that would negotiate from a position of strength. His years in the mines had taught him the value of solidarity, of standing shoulder to shoulder with those who shared your struggles. The summit was a resounding success. Representatives from over 30 human colonies packed the makeshift assembly hall, each one keen to make their voice heard. As Jeff stood before the gathering, he felt the weight of their expectations on his shoulders. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jeff began, his voice echoing in the crowded room, "we are here because we share a common cause. The Zeltrax Guild sees our disunity as their opportunity. It's time we change that. It's It's time we show them that humans are not to be trifled with." His speech was met with vigorous nods and murmurs of approval. One by one, other leaders stood to share their stories, weaving a tapestry of grievances that painted a clear picture of the Zeltrax's manipulations. The meeting concluded with the formal establishment of the Frontier Miners Alliance, FMA, a coalition with Jeff unanimously elected as its chairman. The FMA's first order of business was to draft a charter and set of demands to be presented to the Zeltrax Guild. These demands included the return of seized equipment, fair treatment under galactic law, and transparent oversight of regulatory enforcement. With the alliance formed and its goals set, Jeff felt a surge of hope. Yet he knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. The Zeltrax would not take this uprising lightly, and he anticipated that they would respond with force. As Jeff returned to Tarkus 5, he looked out at the stars, each one a distant beacon of a colony now united in a common cause. The storm was gathering, and soon it would break over them all. Prepared for conflict but hoping for a peaceful resolution, Jeff readied himself and his people for whatever response their stand might provoke. This was no longer a battle for rights. It was a fight for the very soul of the frontier. With the Frontier Miners Alliance, FMA, now officially formed and demands formally issued, the mood among the human colonies was one of cautious optimism mingled with an undercurrent of defiance. However, the Zeltrax Guild's response to their charter was dismissive and scornful, further fueling the determination of the human settlers. Jeff Carlson, chairman of the FMA, realized that words alone would not sway their oppressors. It was time for action. He devised a plan to reclaim some of the equipment seized by the Zeltrax, specifically targeting a warehouse on a remote moon where he had learned his and others' mining rigs were being held. The operation needed to be swift and decisive. Jeff organized a small strike team, composed of volunteers from several colonies, each member selected for their specific skills in combat, stealth, or engineering. The plan was to infiltrate the warehouse under the cover of darkness, disable any security measures, retrieve their equipment, and exit before the Zeltrax could mount a significant response. As they approached the moon in a nondescript, lightly armored shuttle, the tension among the team was palpable. Jeff reviewed the plan one final time, his voice steady. "Remember, we're not just here for our rigs. We're here to send a message that we will not be pushed around. Let's do this cleanly, quietly, and quickly." The moon's surface was barren and illuminated only by the distant stars and the faint glow of neighboring planets. The warehouse was located in a crater, minimally guarded, a testament to the Zeltrax's arrogance in believing the human miners incapable of such a bold move. Using specialized equipment, the team disabled the external cameras and sensors. Two engineers, hailing from the asteroid belt colonies known for their technical prowess, hacked the electronic lock on the warehouse door, allowing the team to slip inside without a sound. Inside, the vast space was filled with rows of confiscated mining equipment and other high-value materials. Guided by the dim light of their handheld devices, the team located their rigs. The engineers quickly began the process of disengaging the rigs from their security clamps, while the others kept watch. The operation was going smoothly until a routine patrol unexpectedly arrived. A quick, whispered conference led to a decision. Instead of retreating, they would hide and wait them out. The patrol passed without entering the warehouse, none the wiser to the heist taking place under their noses. With the equipment finally secured and loaded onto their transport, the team slipped out of the warehouse just as silently as they had entered. As they made their escape, the low hum of their shuttle was drowned out by the natural radio interference from the moon's magnetic field. Back on Tarkus 5, news of the successful raid spread like wildfire through the colonies. Cheers and celebrations broke out, not just for the return of the equipment, but for the proof that the humans could stand up to the Zeltrax Guild. Jeff, while relieved at their success, knew this was just the beginning. The raid would surely escalate tensions, and he prepared his people for the backlash. However, the success had bolstered their morale and, more importantly, had shown the galaxy that when humans got angry, they got results. The first strike was over, but the battle for their rights was just beginning. The audacious raid on the Zeltrax-controlled warehouse didn't just reclaim vital mining equipment, it ignited a series of debates across the galactic community. While the human colonies celebrated their small victory, the Zeltrax Guild lodged a formal complaint against the Frontier Miners Alliance, FMA, with the Galactic Council, accusing them of piracy and terrorism. The Galactic Council, a venerable institution tasked with maintaining order and mediating disputes across star systems, could not ignore the escalating situation. The growing unrest threatened the stability of the sector, prompting them to summon Jeff Carlson, now widely recognized as the leader of the human resistance, to a hearing. Upon receiving the summons, Jeff was acutely aware of the gravity of the situation. His actions and words at the council would not only determine the future of the human colonies, but also set a precedent for how emerging human territories would be treated galaxy-wide. Preparing his defense, Jeff gathered documented evidence of the Zeltrax Guild's overreach and testimonials from affected colonies. Accompanied by a small delegation of human representatives, Jeff traveled to the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber, a massive structure located on a neutral planet renowned for its historical role as a peacemaker among stars. The chamber itself was an architectural marvel, designed to intimidate as much as to awe, with towering pillars and vast open spaces filled with delegations from various species. As the hearing began, the president of the Galactic Council, a seasoned diplomat from the advanced Pluridian species, introduced the case. "We are here to discuss the actions of the Frontier Miners Alliance, led by Mr. Jeff Carlson, and their recent unauthorized raid on a facility under the protection of the Zeltrax Guild." Jeff took the stand, his figure almost dwarfed by the immense scale of the chamber. His voice, however, was firm and carried conviction. "Esteemed members of the Council, we acted out of necessity, not malice. The Zeltrax Guild has systematically exploited human colonies, using obscure regulations to justify severe penalties and to seize property without due process." The Zeltrax delegation countered with their argument, portraying the humans as unruly and dangerous, a threat to the order the Council strived to maintain. They demanded not only restitution, but also stricter oversight on human activities in the sector. The debate was heated, with Council members questioning both sides. Jeff, however, remained composed, presenting his case with evidence that highlighted years of systemic abuse by the Zeltrax. He appealed to the Council's sense of justice, emphasizing the need for fair treatment under galactic law. After hours of deliberation, the Council concluded the hearing, promising a verdict within days. As Jeff and his delegation left the chamber, they were approached by several other species representatives, some expressing sympathy and support, others curious about the potential shift in power dynamics the human resistance might herald. Returning to his ship, Jeff felt a mixture of exhaustion and anticipation. He had done everything he could to sway the Council. Now, it was a waiting game, one that could end in sanctions or in a new dawn for human rights across the galaxy. The implications were enormous, not just for his cause, but for all underrepresented species within the Council's reach. As the ship began its journey back to Tarkus 5, Jeff looked out into the cosmos, pondering the delicate balance of power, hope, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Regardless of the outcome, one thing was clear. The humans had announced their presence on the galactic stage, and they were not going away quietly. Despite the articulate defense Jeff presented at the Galactic Council, the decision came down heavily in favor of the Zeltrax Guild. The ruling dismissed most of the human claims as unsubstantiated and granted the Zeltrax enhanced authority to oversee mining operations, effectively tightening their control. This verdict was a blow to the Frontier Miners Alliance, FMA, and seemed to confirm the Council's reluctance to challenge the established powers. However, the decision, far from breaking the human spirit, ignited a fiercer resolve within the colonies. Jeff, disappointed but undeterred, returned to Tarkus 5, where he found that news of the Council's verdict had already spread. The feeling of injustice had galvanized the settlers even more, transforming simmering resentment into outright defiance. In response, Jeff called for a general assembly of the FMA, which was attended by representatives from every human colony affected by the Zeltrax's dominance. In a packed hall on Tarkus 5, amidst a sea of determined faces, Jeff delivered a rousing speech. "The Council may not have given us justice, but that does not mean we will not claim it for ourselves. If the law will not protect us, we must protect each other." The Assembly passed a resolution to engage in non-compliance with all Zeltrax decrees, a bold move to reclaim autonomy over their operations. The plan included setting up clandestine trade routes, establishing secure communication channels to avoid surveillance, and, most critically, preparing for inevitable retaliation by the Zeltrax forces. Jeff spearheaded the effort to fortify the colonies. Using the expertise of engineers and the labor of miners, they built defenses and modified mining equipment to serve dual purposes, including defense capabilities. Training sessions were held, turning miners into militia, ready to defend their homes and livelihoods. The turning point came when a Zeltrax enforcement brigade attempted to quell what they termed rebellious activities on one of the outer mining planets. The brigade expected little resistance from what they perceived as mere miners. However, they were met with a well-coordinated defense, forcing the Zeltrax to retreat with significant losses. This victory was a critical morale booster for the FMA. News of the successful defense spread quickly, inspiring other colonies to intensify their preparations and resistance efforts. The skirmish was not just a military success, but a statement. The human colonies were no longer willing to submit to tyranny. As Jeff coordinated these resistance efforts across multiple fronts, he also worked on building diplomatic ties with other alien species who were sympathetic to the human cause or had grievances of their own against the Zeltrax. These alliances brought in not only additional resources, but also legitimacy to their struggle, showing the galaxy that the humans were not isolated in their fight. The tide was turning, slowly but unmistakably, as more colonies joined the resistance, united under Jeff's leadership. The FMA was becoming a significant force, no longer just a group of disgruntled miners, but a coalition capable of challenging the status quo. As Jeff looked out over a training session one cool evening, he knew that they were on the brink of a new chapter in their history, one where they might finally dictate their own terms of freedom and justice. As the resistance grew, Jeff Carlson found that their initial successes against the Zeltrax Guild not only boosted morale, but also attracted the attention of other marginalized groups throughout the galaxy. News of their defiance spread, turning the Frontier Miners Alliance, FMA, into a beacon for those oppressed by similar galactic power structures. Jeff's leadership was now recognized not only among human colonies, but also by several other alien species who sought to join the FMA in solidarity. Recognizing the need to formalize this burgeoning alliance and to coordinate efforts more efficiently, Jeff organized a grand council meeting on the neutral planet of Serena V. The planet was chosen for its strategic location at the crossroads of several major trade routes and for its symbolic significance as a longtime hub of interstellar diplomacy. The meeting was historic, marking the first time representatives from diverse backgrounds, human and alien alike, gathered to forge a common cause. Jeff opened the council with a powerful speech about unity and the strength found in diversity. Together, he declared, we are not just fighting against something, we are standing for something: freedom, fairness, and the right to determine our own destinies. During the council, the Alliance's objectives were refined, and strategies were developed to counter the Zeltrax Guild's influence more effectively. The representatives agreed on a multi-pronged approach: increasing military preparedness, disrupting Zeltrax economic interests, and launching a public relations campaign to win hearts and minds across the galaxy. A key outcome of the meeting was the formation of a joint task force comprised of both human and alien military leaders. This task force was charged with overseeing the defense of key territories and planning offensive operations where they could most weaken the Zeltrax Guild. Jeff appointed a seasoned veteran, General Talara, a respected tactician from the Trilok species, as the commander of this new military wing. Under General Talara's guidance, the Alliance began a series of guerrilla operations designed to disrupt Zeltrax supply lines and reclaim territories important for their resource value. One significant operation involved a stealth attack on a Zeltrax-controlled refining station in the Nebulon sector. The mission was risky, requiring intricate coordination and absolute secrecy. The operation was a resounding success. The strike team, using a combination of human ingenuity and alien technology, managed to incapacitate the refining station, causing a temporary but impactful disruption in the Zeltrax fuel supply chain. This victory served a dual purpose. It hampered Zeltrax operations and demonstrated the tactical capabilities of the newly unified Alliance forces. As these victories accumulated, more groups reached out to join the Alliance. With each new member, the FMA's influence and resources grew, enabling more ambitious operations and attracting even more support from across the galaxy. Despite the escalating conflict, Jeff remained committed to his principles of justice and fairness. He ensured that civilian populations were protected and that all Alliance activities adhered to the highest ethical standards. This commitment helped maintain the moral high ground and attracted widespread support, undermining the Zeltrax Guild's attempts to paint the Alliance as mere rebels and insurgents. The galactic dynamic was shifting, and what began as a struggle for the rights of a few miners on a distant planet was evolving into a significant movement, challenging one of the most powerful entities in the galaxy. Jeff watched this transformation with a mixture of pride and awe, aware that the road ahead was still fraught with challenges, but confident in the unity and resilience of the Alliance. The momentum built by the Frontier Miners Alliance, FMA, culminated in what would be known as the Battle of Zenith, a major confrontation at the Zeltrax Guild's capital space station, a formidable fortress orbiting the resource-rich planet of Quinox. This battle was not just a military engagement. It symbolized the climax of the human-led resistance's struggle for autonomy and respect across the galaxy. Preparation for the battle required meticulous planning and coordination among the diverse members of the Alliance. Jeff Carlson, recognizing the significance of this confrontation, personally oversaw the final strategy sessions. The plan involved a multi-tiered assault, leveraging the unique capabilities and technologies of the Alliance's varied members. Human engineers had crafted specialized EMP devices to disable the station's shields, while alien tacticians plotted the trajectories for a stealthy approach through the asteroid field surrounding Quinox. As the Alliance fleet assembled at the rendezvous point, Jeff addressed the troops via the intercom, his voice resolute, instilling courage across the ranks. Today, we stand together, not just as different species from different worlds, but as allies united by a common cause. Victory today means a brighter tomorrow for us all. Let's make sure history remembers the courage and valor shown here. The battle commenced with a feint attack, drawing the Zeltrax fleet away from the station with a small contingent of decoy ships. Meanwhile, the main force advanced, cloaked and silent, slipping through the asteroid field. As they neared the station, the EMPs were launched in a synchronized salvo, successfully knocking out the station's defensive shields. The ensuing chaos was the cue for the Alliance's boarding parties, including Jeff himself, who led a team through the skirmishes in the hangar bays and corridors of the station. The fighting was intense, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. However, the morale and determination of the Alliance fighters, driven by their cause and Jeff's leadership, gradually turned the tide. Simultaneously, outside the station, the space battle raged. General Talara, commanding from the flagship, executed complex maneuvers and strategies that utilized the agility and firepower of the Alliance fleet to outmaneuver the bulkier Zeltrax ships. As the station's internal defenses began to falter, Jeff and his team made their way to the control center. After a fierce battle, they secured the station's command hub, effectively gaining control. From here, Jeff was able to broadcast a ceasefire order to all Zeltrax forces, leveraging the captured communication systems. The Battle of Zenith ended with the unconditional surrender of the Zeltrax Guild's remaining forces. The victory was celebrated not just as a military triumph, but as a pivotal moment in galactic history, marking the rise of a significant new power block led by the FMA and its allies. In the aftermath, Jeff's focus shifted from warfare to diplomacy. The Alliance began negotiations with various galactic entities, including the Galactic Council, to formalize the new power structures and ensure that the rights and sovereignties of all Alliance members were respected and protected. The battle had been costly, but the fruits of their victory promised a new era of cooperation and peace across the regions formerly under the thumb of the Zeltrax Guild. Jeff felt a profound sense of accomplishment, but knew that the true work of building and maintaining peace was just beginning. In the aftermath of the Battle of Zenith, the balance of power within the galaxy had shifted dramatically. The defeat of the Zeltrax Guild at the hands of the Frontier Miners Alliance, FMA, and its diverse array of allies marked a pivotal moment in interstellar politics. As the dust settled, Jeff Carlson found himself not just a leader of a successful rebellion, but a key figure in shaping the future of the galaxy. With the Zeltrax Guild's command structure dismantled and their oppressive hold on numerous systems broken, avoiding governance and order was left in its wake. Recognizing the critical need for stability, Jeff spearheaded efforts to establish a new governance framework that prioritized fairness, transparency, and representation from all sectors of the galaxy. The first step in this monumental task was organizing a peace conference held on the neutral planet of Serena 5, where the Alliance had formed. The conference brought together former adversaries, neutral observers, and allies to negotiate terms of peace and cooperation. Key to these discussions was the creation of a new interstellar body that would function much like the old Galactic Council, but with significant reforms to prevent the concentration of power and ensure no group could dominate others as the Zeltrax had. Jeff, ever the diplomat, navigated the complex negotiations with a focus on reconciliation and rebuilding. He emphasized the shared benefits of peace and cooperation, drawing on his own experiences as a miner who had seen firsthand the impacts of oppression and the strength of unified action. The treaty signed at the conclusion of the conference, known as the Serena Accords, established a new galactic coalition. This body would oversee trade, security, and regulatory enforcement in a way that respected the sovereignty and local governance of its member planets. Importantly, it included a significant clause on mutual defense and an agreement on the fair distribution of resources, which had been a major point of contention under the old regime. In the months that followed, Jeff worked tirelessly to implement the reforms agreed upon at the conference. This involved dismantling the remaining structures of the Zeltrax Guild, integrating their territories into the coalition, and ensuring that aid was provided to those regions that had suffered under their rule. Back on Tarkus 5, the once tumultuous mining colony had begun to flourish under the new system. Miners not only extracted valuable minerals, but did so knowing they would benefit fairly from their labor. The colony became a symbol of the new era, a testament to what could be achieved when different peoples worked together for a common cause. As peace and prosperity slowly returned to the galaxy, Jeff took a step back from his role in the coalition, choosing to return to Tarkus 5. He had never aspired to be a politician or a hero. He was, at heart, a miner and a man of the people. Watching the sun set over the thriving colony, he reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. Jeff's story, from a miner to a galactic leader, was retold in homes and halls across the galaxy, inspiring others to stand up for justice and equity. His legacy, however, was not found in these tales alone, but in the everyday lives of the billions who now lived under a fairer, more inclusive system. Though he had stepped away from the limelight, Jeff remained a respected advisor, occasionally called upon for guidance by the new leaders of the Galactic Coalition. His insights, shaped by years of struggle and negotiation, were invaluable in guiding the young coalition through its formative years. Jeff spent his days working the mines of Tarkus 5, not as before, under the shadow of oppression, but as a free man shaping his world. His evenings were spent at the local gathering spots, sharing stories with old friends and new miners, reminding them and himself of the importance of vigilance in maintaining the freedoms they had all fought so hard to win. The galaxy continued to evolve, with new challenges and opportunities, but the foundation laid by the Serena Accords, and the blood and sweat of those like Jeff who had dared to dream of something better, ensured that never again would such a tyranny dominate the stars. In this new dawn, as Jeff watched younger generations take up the mantle of leadership and innovation, he was content in the knowledge that when humans got angry and stood together, they could change the universe.